Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the best at-home crypto ASIC miners. We're going to talk about a wide range of these things. We're going to talk about the one specifically I am looking at purchasing here in the short term. Because yes, I am in the market for these things, not typically in the market, but we're going to talk about our reasonings as to why, what we're looking for, and just specific models that are out now and models that are coming out in the future, right? So we're gonna have a nice little chat, nice little talk, because there is value here. Even with some of these, even just aside from the at-home things, some of these are pretty just good values overall, right? So we're gonna just talk about a wide range of topics here. So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So this isn't typical of what we look for, but specifically I'm in the market for one for my son, actually. Again, after Disrupt, he's all about getting one. So I've been heavily researching, definitely looking at prices, looking at these price drops, and it is getting to the point now where I'm getting pretty close to pulling the trigger, right? So the criteria just remains the same, just as with the big ASICs, right? We need this thing to be at least break even or better and have good future value. Okay, so we're gonna focus on specific algos here. It's going to be 3 of them, right? It's going to be script ASICs number 1. Main reason being is because my son is adamant about getting a damn Doge miner. So that's going to be one primary thing. So we are going to talk about the gold shell units as well as the AlphaPex units, right? We're going to look at comparisons there. The other 2 algos are ones that I'm bullish on, right? One's going to be kaspa and the other is going to be ETC ETH hash ASICs, right? Which that segment is kind of unique because regardless of whether you're looking at home or any miners in general, there is definitely good value there, right? And some of those I'm eyeing even aside from the at-home aspect, right? So we'll start with the gold shell units. We will start with specifically the script ASICs, okay? So out of the ones I would consider, it is definitely not the mini Doge 3 Plus, which sounds kind of weird because typically what do we focus on? Latest and greatest, right? In this case, it's just kind of like reboxed essentially. Okay, so the mini Doge 3 Plus, the main thing with it is that now it has the PSU integrated. As far as the unit itself, it's essentially the same chips, just it seems like they're just clocked a bit higher. Okay, because the efficiency is pretty much on par, and even the hash rate is damn near about the same also. Okay, so for example, value-wise is what I'm not a fan of here. Okay, so it's 810 mega hash, 500 watts versus the regular mini Doge 3, 700 mega hash, 400 watts. Okay, so very similar efficiency, about the same hash rate. This guy is clocked higher. Again, the big difference here is the integrated PSU, which depending on your viewpoint, like to me, for example, it's a net negative. If the value is still there, still not bad. Like realistically, it should be priced maybe $100 more than the regular mini Doge 3 Plus, but it should not be more than twice as much, right? So value-wise, horrible value. Okay, so you're gonna see people shilling this thing here shortly because it is dropping here pretty soon, but value-wise, in my opinion, horrible, right? So $700 for this thing versus the regular mini Doge 3, which again, very similar in terms of same efficiency, very similar in terms of overall hash rate also, but it's just a much better value. $299 versus $699. You can literally get 2 of these things, right? So doubling your hash rate, so going up to 1.4 gigahash at 800 watts, and the PSU for the same price of one of these things, okay? And even if you value efficiency more, it's definitely still the better value here because guess what? You can put these guys in low power mode, have the same wattage, but end up being at a gigahash instead of 810 megahash because you can have these guys both running an LPM, and it's definitely makes it even more appealing than this guy. Okay, so value-wise, this guy absolutely not. These guys at $300, definitely most likely going to be pulling the trigger here to get my son one right off the rip. Again, it's not going to be the most profitable thing. It's probably not going to be something where you're probably going to be better off buying the coin. It's more just something to mess around with. And it's something that is likely just going to be profitable for quite a while. Okay. In terms of the best overall home unit though for script mining, it's one that fortunately we don't have a whole lot of info on other than the specs, which is why we know it is going to be the best. And it's the DG Home 1. Okay. This is the one that was debuted at Disrupt. This is from AlphaPex. 2000 mega hash at 620 watts. Okay, so the appeal here is definitely the efficiency It is also extremely cool looking. I'm sure you guys seen videos of this thing. It is extremely cool. It is a hydro unit, so it is extremely quiet. You can have it indoors. It's all one unit. It's all good to go. The downfall is it's a Q4 release, and the bigger downfall is we don't know the price yet. Okay, so the price is going to really tell us whether it's a value here or not. Because if this thing is coming in at like $2,000, $2,500, pretty overpriced. Okay, so it's definitely more efficient though. But let's look at as to why, like value-wise, the little gold shell unit, depending on your scale, depending on your viewpoint, depending on what you're looking for, might still be a better bang for the buck, right? When you look at percentages though, right, you're gonna see it's 2 times more efficient. Let's look at the reality of things though. Okay, so this gold shell unit, if we were to break it down, we would compare it in low power mode. Okay, and this point, when we break it down at that aspect, if we were to do it in LPM, right, we would need 4 of these guys because each unit is 550 mega hash, 260 watts. Okay, so 4 of these units would equate to one of these guys in terms of overall hash rate. That would get us to the 2000 mega hash. The downfall is that it would be, what, 260 times 4, so a little over 1,000 watts. So is that one massively more efficient? Yes. Is the price going to be worth the couple hundred watts though? Because again, this is going to be 1,000 watts versus 620. About 400 watts difference. If there is a huge premium for this guy, in reality, is it going to be worth 400 watts? It's up for you to decide. Keep in mind, again, 4 of these guys is going to cost you $1,200. We have to see where the price is of this guy. If this guy's coming in over $2 grand, those 400 watts really worth twice the price. It's going to be up to you to decide. And keep in mind, we're getting closer to this bull market where the efficiency isn't going to be as important. So we're comparing it in LPM mode. But again, if we go to full hash mode, 4 of these guys are going to give you 2.8 gigahash, 2800 mega hash. Okay, so obviously less efficiency. But once the profitability comes in, it kind of plays less of a part. Okay, so we really got to see the price of this guy. If it comes in aggressive, if it comes in at like $1,500, then definitely all day. But if it comes in at like $2,500, $3,000, we're gonna have to wait and see. The other big issue is waiting and seeing, right? If you wait too long, what happens if the price to start pumping? This guy's no longer gonna be $300, and then you might have missed out on that potential price, and this guy comes in crazy expensive, right? So you have to kind of factor those things in. The play may be to get one of these guys, like that's gonna be my play. I'm getting most likely one of these guys at $300, and then kind of waiting to see what happens here. If this guy ends up being aggressively priced, maybe scoop one up depending on the price point. If not, maybe I'll scoop up another one of these. If not, maybe something else. Who knows? But you just have to factor that in, because again, it's going to look amazingly better, but you have to see the value here and what you value. Right? Sometimes it's not all about the price. Sometimes it is about efficiency. Maybe you only do have access to that 115 amp circuit and you need to get the most efficiency in order to be able to have as much as you can. Right? So it really depends on what you value here, and that's what you kind of have to look at as a whole. Like for me, for example, not that big of a deal because we have 2 living rooms, a spare office, a spare bed. Like there's a lot of 15 amp circuits that we can plug in the house. Right? So for me, that's not the greatest deal. But it's definitely a factor, right? You definitely want to look at profitability and overall long-term profitability, okay? So it is just something to consider there. But in terms of script ASICs for being at home things, the Mini Doge 3 Plus, definitely a hell to the no at this price. Maybe $499, you can make the argument if you were really dead set on getting this integrated PSU. But again, for me, that's a net negative. All day, I would prefer the regular unit, and especially because it's such a better value, all day with this guy. Okay, so for script ASICs, something to consider. This guy definitely most appealing, but we have to wait for that price. Okay, so in terms of profitability, again, the gold shell units are barely break even, right? Your profitability terms, not a whole lot. The name of the game here is mine and hodl. And the name of the game with all of these is going to be mine and hodl, right? If you're looking for outright ROI calculations and pure profitability, this ain't it, right? The benefit with these at-home ASICs, though, is it's a lot easier to swallow paying like 300 watts, 500 watts, even 1,000 watts out of pocket, versus with the example with Script, one of like the AlphaPex units paying fucking 4,000 watts out of pocket. It's a lot harder, right? Especially if it's multiples of those units, right? So it really depends on what you value, what you're looking at here, right? So you have to take those things into consideration as well. Okay. So again, this guy's barely break even. The AlphaPex unit at current prices, it would be bringing in about $339 in revenue, about $2 a day profit, right? So again, for us as the consumer, the sooner the price gets announced, potentially the better the price is going to be, because obviously the longer they wait, if Doge and LTC's prices do appreciate, obviously the unit's going to cost more. So right now, hopefully we do get prices here pretty soon, and that'll be the better bang for the buck. Okay. Let's go on to the next one, and these are going to be the most popular units just because when we look at overall profitability, it's definitely looking the best. The thing is though, long-term wise, that's where it gets sketchy. Like in terms of what's going to be more profitable, let's say 12 months from now, oddly enough, it might be freaking this guy over this guy or one of the K0 Ultras, right? Just because again, you're on a downward spiral in terms of yield with kaspa. Okay, but definitely in being short-term plays, there's definitely appeal here, right? But factor in, you know, we all know all the factors there. You can check in any of the freaking kaspa videos I've done, which is multiple. We all know the risk there, but factor those things in. But in terms of bang for the buck for at-home ASICs, the K-Box Pro, not the most efficient. The advantage here is the density and the fact that you're not paying for shipping on multiple units. Okay, so like if you're buying from a store, like if you're getting, it depends on how many units you're going to get, right? So the best deal is the K0 Ultra from Ice River Direct. The problem are those damn tariffs. So if you're ordering 2 or less, you shouldn't get hit with it. So that's going to be the best deal, because I think they're only charging like 50, 60 bucks for shipping, versus the stores are going to charge more, right? So even like if you buy from Nhash, which their price is pretty good on the Zero Ultras, we'll talk about that here in a second. The downfall is you're going to pay 100 bucks shipping for each individual one, right? So it depends on the scale, like how many you're going to get. If you're only planning on getting in 2 anyway, definitely get them from the Ice River website. If you're planning on getting a bunch though, not a bad deal here, right? We'll talk about the deals here. If you guys are interested in any of these from Nhash, right, any of them in general, I did forget to mention already, we'll have a referral link. It does help the channel if you guys are interested. But so bang for the buck wise, the efficiency is with the Ultra. The benefit with this guy is the fact you're paying shipping for 1 unit, and it's the density aspect. Okay, so $8.99 is pretty good. The price has been dropping pretty aggressively though, so wouldn't be surprised to see it drop more. If it drops more, definitely gets more appealing, but the drop has been so aggressive, and it's like we mentioned with like the AO box, it does seem like they are going to be releasing something else here pretty soon. Is it a KA Lite or something of that sort? Maybe, and that is a segment that is missing. That is something that we need. We need like 1,000, 1,200 water for kaspa ASICs. That's definitely a void right now. We're good on the low end. We're good on the high end. That middle end is where a KA Lite could fill that void. Even if it's not as efficient as the Ice Rivers, it's definitely much easier to have 1 unit versus like freaking 10 of the Ultras, right? So we have to factor in all the power supplies and all that garbage. But the Ice River Ultras are more efficient, right? Even comparing it directly with this guy, there's a pretty big difference in efficiency. If we get 4 of these guys, it brings you up to 400 watts versus 600 watts. So in terms of percentages, it's a 50% difference, right? Which sounds pretty massive, but is the 200 watts really worth it to you? It just depends on what you value more here, right? Just keep in mind there is going to be more cost associated with this thing just because of the power supplies, but also factor in overclocks with this thing, which they're coming. That's all I'll say on that, but factor that in potentially also, although I wouldn't factor it in, but just keep in mind that that's a possibility there in the future, right? Versus this guy, you're going to kind of be stuck here. Maybe they'll do a LPM mode that's more efficient, but as far as overclocks go, which with kaspa ASIC mining, you want to get as much as you can sooner versus long term. Okay, so again here, price wise, this is where it gets juicy with Nhash. They just lowered their price, so it comes down to $189 each, but factor in 100 bucks shipping. So in reality it's $289, which brings you pretty close though to the Ice River after shipping price. The benefit here is, again, if you're ordering multiple, more than 2, you don't have to worry about the tariffs here. That's going to be your final price. So it brings it pretty much in line with the Ice River site. The advantage here is obviously you can order as many as you want. Okay. So something to consider there. Not bad. Benefits are there. Just depends again what you value the most. Bang for the buck and efficiency. Ice River all day. Density and having one unit and ease of use, potentially this guy, right? But it just, again, depends on what you value here. Okay. Now we look at profitability. It's where it gets like, it's going to be decent, right? Again, if you get 5 of these, you can multiply this by 5 currently, right? Just understand the dynamics of it. Understand that if you're looking at this long term, it's where it's going to get a little sus, right? Just because the hash rate is going to go through the roof, the emissions reductions, there's a lot of factors against you if your mind frame is long term, is getting these little guys as a long term play. And that's why the script and the ETC ASICs are more appealing from that perspective. Okay, so just make sure you fully understand that. So these are definitely also on the radar. I will likely get at least one. Most likely at least one of these things, one of these gold shell things for my son. Again, these are more for him than anything. Now, in this next segment though, these ETC ASICs, these are ones that I'm not looking at, not necessarily for him or for like messing around with. These are just pretty good overall values in general. Whether you're looking at home ASICs or overall ASICs, these are just good values, period, right? And this is where it's much more intriguing for me. And this is definitely more where my eye would be. So we'll start with the Jazz miners. We'll start with the X16Q, which is just the game of efficiency. And what's appealing here is now these price drops. So the Jazz miners have been efficiency from the get-go. Is the damn prices is where it's been kind of a pain in the ass, and just because they haven't had any competition, right? It was iPolo. They haven't done a damn thing. If they're essentially dead right now, maybe they'll come back. Hopefully they do. But because Bombax came on the scene, now they have competition. Now they got to do something. Okay. So their answer though initially was just, hey, we're gonna have a better unit coming out, and that was just to try to like cock block Bombax essentially, right? So the downfall here is we don't have a release window, and the fact that they announced it and it's been months now, they haven't said anything, kind of gives more credence to the rumors of it being an end of the year Q1 25 kind of release. Okay, because realistically, if it was on the horizon, they would have already started doing pre-orders, done that whole game, which they have been horrible in terms of delivery. Well, this one also makes it sketchy, but this at least does give us a viewpoint as to what to expect for the next gen, right? Which gives more credence to that Bombax, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the advantage now is that these Jazz miners, the prices are finally dropping. Okay, so like this guy's $23.89. This is the regular full model, so this is 8 gigs of RAM. Where my eye would be more at is actually this guy, the QE. Just keep in mind though the limitation on the RAM, so it is going to limit you depending on what you're trying to mine. Factor that in. The benefit here is the price. So for the price of a 4090, you can get a profitable ASIC. Okay, so pretty good here. Although I'm not super bullish on ETC, it's about the profitability aspect here and the fact that you can dual mine, which makes it profitable, ETC and ZIL. But in reality, the appeal here for me, Octa. Octa is one I'm super light in. That's one that's what these would be utilized for. So currently, I believe it's still more profitable to mine ETC and ZIL. So the goal there would be to just swap for Octa, right? Eventually, if Octa does become more profitable, then swap over completely there. But that would be my focus here. But you have options. They are versatile. They are efficient, right? These are the advantage with these guys is that it's a profitable ASIC. And in this case, for example, it's 550 watts. It's easy to do the mine and hodl when you're only coming out of pocket for 550 watts versus the typical 3000 watters, etc. So depending on your strategy, depending on what you value, that's where the appeal is with these guys, okay? Now, the reason that I'm hesitant is that what's a big criteria for me when I'm looking at ASICs? Latest and greatest or nothing, right? That's the downfall for me, is that this is not the latest and greatest. We already have the next gen of Jazz miners announced. We already have the specs, which are significantly better, right? It's not a 10 or 20% increase. It's a pretty massive increase, but again, we don't have any details or specs. But what we do have is a competitor unit, and it's the freaking Bombax unit, the EZ100C. which is twice the hash rate, right? Again, the regular Jazz Miner is 1950. This guy's 3800 mega hash, and not a whole lot more wattage, right? 760 watts versus the 600 and change on the other. Okay, so pretty dramatic increase in the efficiency. Not as good as the next Jazz Miner, although this guy in LPM mode is get pretty close. Okay. So the downfalls here though, price is pretty hefty. Overall value wise, like if the Jazz Miner, like if this guy was priced here, be a good value because of the name, right? Jazz Miner has been around. They have been fairly reliable, pretty good brand so far. Bombax, we don't know about yet. We don't know reliability. We don't know durability yet. It is a new manufacturer. We don't know how long they're going to be around. Spending $5K on an at-home ASIC, kind of tough pill to swallow, right? The cheaper this guy were to get, the better it would be, especially considering current profitability, right? When we look at actual profitability in terms of on ETH hash, if we're to do straight up Octa, your daily revenue would be about $5.20. Straight up ETC, $5.49. Just keep in mind you can dual mine though, ETC and ZIL, so it'd be a little bit more. So to spend $5,000 on an ASIC that's gonna net you about that much in revenue, kind of tough to swallow, especially with things like the KS5L and all that kind of stuff. So if the price were lower, right, if it were under 4K, 3,500 to me, like in the 3K range, definitely extremely appealing. Okay, but we have to kind of see if Jazz Miner decides to cut a little bit more, because these are recent price cuts. These are literally just in the past few weeks. Will they cut more? Is it going to force Bombax to go down a little bit? Because I also not a fan of what they did with increasing the specs. They were initially 3,200 mega hash, and they were much closer to that $4,000 range, and they decided to increase the price a good amount for what seems to be just a firmware overclock upgrade, right? So not sure if it is different chips or if it is different hardware, but was not a fan of that move, especially with certain vendors or depending on who you purchase from. You were kind of forced in a way to pay the difference, so just not a big fan of that whole ordeal. We'll see how they play out, but ideally, if this guy were to drop more, that would definitely be more appealing. The risk there, again, is what happens with the market, right? You can sit here like, oh yeah, I'll definitely wait for it to go down. We don't know if it's going to go down or not much more. Okay, again, we're at the point where we're running out of time for getting these deals on these ASICs. Okay, so factor that opportunity cost there as well. Okay, so definitely appealing though. Again, the big downfall for me, it's a new manufacturer. We don't know about durability. Although for this one, I would be more willing to potentially take the risk only because it is an at-home ASIC, right? And I would utilize it indoors. So it's gonna be in a more ideal environment. Like I think that definitely plays a bigger factor for the bigger guys, because like for example in my case, they are definitely going to be outside. They're definitely going to be in a very harsh environment, a lot more dust, a lot more things to consider there, versus this guy is going to be inside, air conditioned, filtered air, right? So it's essentially going to be babied, right? So in terms of like reliability, durability, because of the fact that it's going to be babied, it's probably going to do okay. It's going to do well, right? Versus if it's a unit that I have to have in the garage, that thing's got to be durable and it's got to be able to take the heat, right? So like for example, the big units, the regular Easy 100s, 15K, absolutely not, right? Maybe once they turn out to be reliable, maybe the next gen, like okay, yeah, they end up being good, maybe, but currently no, right? It's just a lot of risk for a new manufacturer. Okay, so ideally here, I would like to see a better price. Maybe if they were to do one that's smaller than this, maybe like a Easy 100 Mini or something. Maybe that's just like half of the board that were like half of this price, $2,500. That would even be more appealing, right? But we'll see what they end up doing. We'll see how these things hold up. Definitely watching them. Definitely watching this price, right? I want this to be a bit lower. Will we get it? Honestly, maybe, maybe not. Right? It's really hard to tell where we're going to go in this market. Okay, so again, with these ETC ETH ASICs, to me, best overall value, because these, even again, aside from the indoor, outdoor, home or industrial use, good values here. Okay, whether it's this or the Jazz Miners, the just overall efficiency in terms of comparing it to the competition, They're solid units. Okay, in terms of bang for the buck and current profitability, these guys are the most appealing, especially because, again, it's only 100 watts. They're going to be efficient or profitable for a long time. The downfalls are not going to be very profitable for a long time, right? Again, the KS0 Ultra, we've already seen, right? For example, the initial KS0s making pennies a day. They're still profitable. They're just not yielding much, right? So like long-term play-wise, these guys would be more appealing and the ETC ASICs would be more appealing, right? A lot of these more boring algos, okay? In terms of what I would look for, aside, again, the main appeal here for me is just for my son. He really wants one of these, so that's why I would eye these. In terms of overall, like, regardless of the at-home things, the ETC ASICs are, to me, where it's at if you're looking for at-home ASICs, okay? So, again, kind of a different topic for us, kind of a different one, but definitely something I will be keeping my eyes on, especially with these price cuts. These prices have been getting kind of weird all over the place, and a lot of it has to do with this recent price action, but currently the market is beginning to turn around. It's hard to say what's going to happen here in the next few months. A lot of things going on in the world causing this price action, so just got to factor those things in, guys. But let me know what you guys think, guys. Let me know what you guys are doing. If you guys who did get a Bombax unit, please let me know your experience, how it's been holding up, how's it doing. Let me know, guys. If any of you guys stocked up on any of these Jazz miners with this current price drop, let me know. Let me know what you guys think, guys. So please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and we are out.